Hello, everybody. Call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. Today is Monday, March 6th. It is 7:02 p.m. Just for people who are watching, a couple of things. One is we have only one attendee on Zoom. That's Nick Solitro, one of the town solicitors. You'll notice, again, if you're viewing from home or in the audience, that Town Manager Marianne Crawford is not here. She's actually in Washington, D.C. At a, I think it's Washington, D.C., but she's at a conference. She is not at home watching the UConn women's basketball game. And Millie McGinnis is not here this evening as well. Laura, we're in Laurel's capable hands this evening, and appreciate her fine work. And here comes Martha. Hi, Martha. How are you? We could use it. We should have a task force. We should have a task force. Let's start out the evening. Thank you for being, exactly. Thank you for your patience as we get started. Laurel, are you ready? Are you going to sit over there? What's your preference? Excellent. Fantastic. We'll open the meeting as we always do with public comment. Anybody want to comment? Do we have anything tonight? No, nothing. Okay, great. Let's move to our consent agenda. We have two sets of minutes to approve, some correspondence that I would ask folks to take note of. I believe it's on our clerk base page, and the customary notice from planning about a master plan for Rose Farm subdivision. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please? Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. All right. Do we have Allison here? Allison Reed?
Keith, I might be able to help with that. Nick Solitro. On the next agenda item, Allison reached out to my office earlier today. She thinks it makes sense to kick this a month if possible, and it's acceptable to the council. She's still working on tying up some loose ends and wants to have a finished product in front of you folks.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Sure.
If I recall correctly, we have to postpone this to a date certain.
Correct.
Let me see. She said she'd like about 30 days, Nick.
Yeah, I suggested to her the first meeting in April. So if Laurel can help us out with that, if she's aware of the date.
All right, I would make a motion to continue this item to the town council meeting on April 3rd. Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. That's continued. Is Chris Warfel here tonight? No, I didn't see him. Okay. Item 4 is to set a public hearing date for the proposed amendment to New Shoreham zoning ordinance regarding an application to amend the zoning ordinance. This is Chris Warfel's proposal. I must admit, I'm a bit, I'm struggling procedurally on this matter. If you guys haven't read this, this is if I recall correctly, the proposal to create a program for some manner of subsidy for the construction of accessory dwelling units. Yes. Which, I've made no secret that I actually think that this is potentially a fruitful path for the town to pursue. The challenge is creates a program and calls for expenditure of public money when the program hasn't been created and the financial town meeting hasn't happened. And I'm in a bit of a sort of cart and horse problem on this. And I mean, I have some ideas, none especially compelling, but one of the things that I was thinking is perhaps to hold this while we work on it. Another is to schedule the public hearing for whatever April 3rd, and have a commitment to to work on it in the intervening time. We'll have several budget meetings that we've had in that intervening time. I don't want to lose this concept, whether it happens this year or next, or we debate it this year or next. I think the idea of figuring out a way to sort of rev up the accessory dwelling unit as year-round housing has some potential. And if you've been following the Providence Journal and the Globe, clearly the legislature, particularly the speaker, is very focused on this particular idea. So I don't know what you guys feel sort of about this procedurally. I don't have to spend too much time getting into the substance of it, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I can start.
Please.
I think there's, first of all, did we ever get the advisory from the planning board on it?
We did get an advisory from the planning board. They acted at their last meeting to forward it to us.
That was all.
They, if I'm being, so they were in the same, I think I may have just sort of, and Sosha's here, so she can correct me. I sort of rephrased where they were great idea, but not sure exactly how the pieces get put together. I actually, I try not to, but I actually spoke at planning last time and said, please do forward this to us, because it is a concept that merits a broader conversation. Let's not focus too much on the program particulars at this point, but let's focus on this notion of whatever, whether it's a property tax benefit or a capital subsidy or what have you. I don't even know what that'll look like, or whether people agree with it, but it seemed to merit being passed on for conversation.
Well, I think they have, my question was, did they give us a recommendation? Was there a recommendation from the planning board? Can anybody? But I thought when we received, and I may be wrong, when we received a request for a zoning amendment, it was forwarded to the planning board for their review and recommendation, and then came back to us.
And if they didn't recommend it, it doesn't come to us.
Are you sure about that?
No.
I thought if they didn't recommend it, it just came without action,
I don't have.
which is disappointing, if that's what happened.
No, I don't think there was anything that I saw that was disappointing in what planning did. I mean, I think they were, some of the elements of this proposal are sort of governmental appropriations and finance questions
Yeah.
that are not related to sort of planning's purview. So it's an unusual one.
But I think it is, and I think there are things that are very particular in this. I mean, I got as far as, a 15-year limit, and that's not. I mean, I remember when 25 or 30 or whatever Beacon Hill was seemed like it was going to be forever and, gosh, it's gone.
Right. I think there are a lot of elements to this that are like that we need to talk about if we want to press on with the program.
I guess I would like to have a work session around it. And not necessarily the details of bullet point C or D, but the merits and the topics. And I guess,
But I mean, you've got to have, we can talk about the merits and we can talk about the theory and we can talk about the, grand plan. But if we're actually going to have an ordinance, this is the specifics. That's what we have to talk about.
well, I guess my point was, we can spend a lot of time on the specifics. Oh, sorry, thank you. We can spend a lot of time on the specifics, but if the council doesn't really want to entertain the concept, then let's get that out of the way first. And I'm not saying it does or doesn't. So I guess my question
I like what you're
was,
saying.
do we discuss the merits? Because these are some big ideas, and Chris is here. This is at 519. These are some big ideas, and I think we should discuss them. I think it would be great if planning, like even if it's a joint work session, Keith, or something, and just
Yeah.
discuss this and say, do we think this is a good idea? Do we all think it is? There are potholes everywhere, but let's talk about it. And if we're all sort of green lighting, now let's get into a layer of detail, So I think we should make sure that this is without getting lost in the weeds, I guess is my point. So I would love to discuss. I think this is a big idea.
I don't disagree.
And I just worry that we could get lost in, a detail and miss the idea. And then I just want to make sure we work through the concept.
Chris, does that sound good to you? We'll set up a work session to go through the detail of this. Or to go through the concept of this. I know. Wow. Oh, it's no problem.
Can you make sure that the green light is on? Because at the last meeting, we had some difficulty with that. Thanks.
Say your name, Chris.
I had the wrong day for this and I would have been here on time if I had known. I agree
Okay,
at this point.
great. Okay, then is it everyone's sense that we will have a work session in the next 30 days-ish?
Keith,
on this?
just one,
Yes.
if we could, much of this is governed by statute, and I was glad to see that Chris was able to make it this evening. As it stands currently, the planning department was looking for an April 3rd hearing date. It sounds like the council wants to work with Chris and come up with something that would work for everybody. What I would suggest, if it was acceptable to Chris, that he waive the time confines in which we have to hold a public hearing so that we could meet and then thereafter set a public hearing. In many respects, the clock is ticking, and the only person who could waive that clock so that discussion could be had with the council is Mr. Warfel as the applicant.
Chris?
Do you have a guidance on what an appropriate waiver would be? I've been burned in the past by
Yeah.
doing
Sure.
that, and it was a 2-year
Yes.
process.
Sure.
I do not want to go through that again.
Let me ask you something, Nick. Can we set a hearing date for April 3rd? Have our work session between now and April 3rd, and if we're making progress, postpone the hearing?
Yes, you would just convene on that hearing date and then continue it to a date certain.
Yeah, but what's our budget, what is our budget schedule? How soon are we rolling into that?
Now?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I would like to, I think if people are okay, I'd like to schedule this for April 3rd with the understanding from Chris that we'll extend if it's,
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We're
is that
trying
okay with you, Nick?
Absolutely. And thank you for the applicant for his flexibility.
You betcha. Thank you.
But I guess Chris's question, sorry, Keith, Chris's question to Nick was, what's an acceptable way that it doesn't turn into 2 years? And I I mean, other than our commitment.
I've just
saying-
We just
suggested
did
it.
it.
Oh, the work session on the 3rd.
Yeah, we're going to schedule it for April 3rd. We're going to hold
And
a
the
work
hearing.
session.
Oh, thank you. I'm
And
sorry.
it-
I
and-
misunderstood.
I guess I'd make a motion to schedule this for hearing on April 3rd.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And Laurel, can I work with you tomorrow with the council's calendar, Allison's plannings, Chris's? It shouldn't be too hard to get to find a date. Terrific. Thank you so much. Chris, thank you. Nick, thank you. All right then. Next, we have item 5 to authorize hunting, possession, and taking of deer within the boundaries of the town of New Shoreham. My understanding from Millie and Laurel, I don't know whether she passed this along to you or this is a resolution apparently that we adopt every year to enable the taking of deer in New Shoreham, in the town of New Shoreham. Oh, thank you, Martha.
There is a provision in state law that unless the town has an ordinance that says every year the town sets the dates for deer hunting, the state can just do it at once. So we have to do it every year or we could lose control of it.
So what do you think, what is the proper form of the motion here? Because I don't have it in front of us. Is it to authorize the hunting, possession, and taking of deer within the boundaries of the town of New Shoreham in a manner consistent with the hunting schedule that we've approved?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
That's
I think so.
consistent with the ordinance, Keith.
We used to wrap them.
Say that again, Nick.
That's consistent with the ordinance. You're
Okay.
asking to authorize this hunting, taking possession of deer.
Does that motion make sense? to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think what happened, we used to wrap these two things together
Oh, gotcha,
and it wasn't quite as confusing.
gotcha.
Not that deer or anything, but ever confusing.
Molly, I see your green light on. Do you?
Oh.
No, you're welcome to keep it on. I just didn't want to skip over you. Anybody else? Okay, I would make that motion to authorize the hunting, possession, and taking of deer within the boundaries of the town of New Shoreham, consistent with the hunting calendar adopted by the town council.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. We are all, that's passed. Next is to receive a parking update. Neil, do you
Okay.
wanna start? Neil and Martha.
Get the presentation up on the screen. So while she's doing that, I just wanted to share. So this is fact finding and gathering information. It's not meant for recommendations and decision making at this point. And the deck you're going to review is information gathered through several different meetings and individual conversations with island residents. So I'll start with the goal of the meeting. So out of the town council meeting, we agreed to pull a small group together to discuss parking and traffic congestion. I pulled a group together with Martha. We've met individually with them as well as together. And the goal of the meeting was to identify ways to increase parking and reduce traffic congestion in the peak summer months. Review all the past inputs from surveys, studies, task force, etc. Brainstorm new ideas and clarify the past solutions if anyone was unclear, and then discuss and prioritize solution and align on next steps. In the meeting, the first town meeting held on Friday, February 24th was myself, Karen Dwale, Martha Ball, Clifton Bauman, and Carolyn Collins. As a secondary meeting, which I had as part of the Arts Council, I leveraged Eli Holmes, Dorothy Finlay, Martin Rosato, Michelle Fontaine, Tracy Lee Michelson, Paige Gaffett, and Marmar. I also had conversations via the phone with John Cullen, Sarah Bacon, Julie Fuller, and then various one-off conversations as I saw people in restaurants and or the market. During the during the due diligence, I used all of the different surveys that the town has done or individual groups, studies and task force meetings that have been held, as well as past town council agendas and notes taken. I'm going to pause there just because the next slide has a lot of information and it'll be helpful to have up. All right. So I guess keep going, Laurel, and I'll kind of do a little bit of ad hoc. So as everyone in the room who's familiar with parking or traffic, the same ideas have come up over and over and over. So this is not brain surgery on what we're trying to solve for. It is a matter of the town taking an action in alliance with the citizens or the residents of the island. When I went through all the information I could find on parking and or traffic, it dates back to 1977, which was the first study by Michael Everts and Associates, which was done on behalf of the town. 10 years later, that study was updated by a gentleman named Phil Herr on behalf of the town. In 2004, the Old Harbor Vision Study was done by Dodson Associates, which people would probably remember Jane Weidman, who became the town planner. In 2011, there was lengthy discussions with Margie Cummings and the Planning Committee. In 2018, Ed Roberge, the town manager, held different meetings as well as individual meetings. And then in 2021, the police advisory created a survey or solicited information. And in 2021, Respect Block Island leveraged Nelson Nygaard to conduct a study on parking and traffic. So when you think about it, that's a long time we've been talking about parking. And the one thing you'd see once we can get it up on the screen is there's issues identified in each study, and then there's solutions. And what you see is the issues touch each time, as well as many of the solutions get carried over. So what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do, is not reinvent the wheel. We have a lot of information we've already gathered, and how do we leverage this to make a meaningful change in what town or the outskirts and how we manage traffic and parking. Laurel, you're on the spot now. You want me to resend it? Or you maybe pull it up from your email or wherever I sent it. I could send it to you directly rather than. So
Neil,
Yeah.
did you have the Al Davis study?
the which one?
Al Davis?
No. No one has mentioned that one.
I don't know how many years, Bill, do you have any idea how long ago that was? Bill McComb, you paying attention?
7?
It wasn't that long ago. He was a policeman who had some background in this, and he did a lot of, it was pre-COVID, that's all I know.
Okay.
He did-
I'll see what's on.
He did a lot.
online and
I
pull
mean,
it.
he had a lot more legitimate counting than, people standing on the street. I think he was the guy who proposed, the one suggestion he had that was really good was widening the Neck Road,
Yes.
moving the painted line, which needs to be uncovered again.
Keep going. Perfect. And then maybe hit that double arrow on the up. Yeah, it might maximize there we go. Perfect. So I'm not gonna, this details out there. I'm gonna read fast, but just kind of, so from 1977, you have day tripper volume as the issue. There's bike chaos, unorganized parking spaces at the boat. In 87, it's the same things, add mopeds into the mix. In 2004, it's the boat landing is highly congested, narrow streets, parking issues, lack of marking on the parking. Behavioral changes by all are needed, a willingness to spend dollars by the town council, and the town council needs a mandated direction on where the town goes. Same concerns were focused in 2018, more focused on congestion. And then in 2021, it was addressing parking, vehicle issues. This was all solicited by residents via email. And in the Respect BI, they had overall people and car traffic congestion and safety. This one really calls out safety, and then design and usage issues of the roadways. So again, the theme is volume, the theme is traffic. You know, the real big call out in the last survey by Respect Block Island was the safety factor. And it was in conjunction and timed based on many of the moped accidents or the increase in moped accidents that have been occurring. Solutions go into create off-site parking, angled parking on Water Street, limit the number of cars coming to Block Island. Again, those date back to 1977, and they're still in some of the solutioning as we move forward. And what I did was I didn't filter anything from the surveys. So this slide shows everything. Even if you thought it was the craziest thing, I still put it on here so it was recognized as what came up. And you'll see when we did the brainstorming, same thing. I told the group, don't hold back. If you have an idea, throw it out there, even if you think it's the craziest thing. Access harbors, the harbor from Chapel Street, eliminate all parking on Water Street, refine and regulate parking, and again, limit number of cars coming to Block Island. Again, this is all the solutions of the various surveys. 2004, it's leveraging parking again, using off-site parking, private parking, fix the parking by Rebecca's, which actually was done, create lot at sewer plant, add sidewalks to High Street and Chapel Street. High Street was done. And do angled parking on Chapel and Weldon's Way in order to create more parking. 2011, ideas of metered parking start, stickers for residents, the town investing in off-site parking and using private property. Summer trolley, this is the first time you start to see summer trolley come up. Valet parking at Interstate. Would you get on that? You know, we'll be talking to you after that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Post office meters, angled parking, build a parking garage, subsidized mainland parking. Interesting thing on this, there was a side note that both Ballards and the Spring House that particular year tried subsidized parking for their guests to try to keep their cars. Well, it was twofold. One, they were trying to incent more people. They had openings, but it also was they were going to subsidize parking as well as their ticket coming to the island. It didn't last long. It was hard to manage, so they abandoned it fairly quickly. But subsidized mainline parking came up by, oh God, he lived down on the neck. But it did actually make it into the comprehensive plan, whatever was updated in 2011. In 2018, trolley comes back up, close the end of Chapel Street from Weldon's Way to Water Street, use that area either for additional seating or allow the trolley to disembark people using the trolley, use area for loading, open air mall, make Weldon's Way one way as well as Water Street, and add sidewalks to Chapel, Corn Neck, and or to Champlin. So again, we saw the biggest thing that I've seen so far through all the different iterations is sidewalks was the big thing the town did act on with the state to get stuff done. In 2011, the police advisory, bring up trolley, leveraging private land and school for parking, enforce existing parking rules. This has come up through all of them. There was anecdotal information that people weren't parking because they were ticketing people because they knew whose car it was. If you got a ticket, you could go to the police station, cry or yell, and they would tear up your ticket. Again, anecdotal information. I don't have fact to it, but that's what I'm being told by multiple people. Police consistency directing traffic. I do think we saw that. when Chief Moynihan was here. Create a moped parking area, a pretty unique idea. Came up with that, which was obviously creating a unique space. One of the areas was, could we move all mopeds to the lot by the airport, create a training area there as well as mopeds. I did reach out to Jen Brady. She's gone. Zoning doesn't allow that right now, but again, we leave it on there. No parking near beach access pass, increase parking fees and tickets, secure a tow lot, which is being discussed, boat ramp parking pass, prohibit all grass shoulder parking, and address unregistered cars and an increase in driving while intoxicated. Last survey, Respect Black Island, their big study showed that there's confusing signs, so improve signage and education for visiting guests about the roads, not just speed limit, but where to go, what the lines mean. There were comments that the lines aren't actually accurate that are on the road today. Update road markings, reduce intersection size. They said in their study that the 4 or 5 major intersections are too wide, causing pedestrian issues as well as car and bikes. Enforce the existing parking and traffic rules, redesign parking on shoulders, increase the number of sidewalks, traffic calming, I wasn't sure what that was, but, and build a safety campaign. So that is what the groups have worked on. Martha, I will pull what Al Davis had and see what else was in there. But nothing, I think you could agree, is really that far from the reality of what we deal with during the summer months or the peak months. What I did was break out, if you could go to the back ones. Oh, yeah, you know what, I changed the order. So these were just some various comments that people have said. We can't keep talking about this and do nothing. This is not a new issue. I don't go downtown in the summer because of the traffic. We need to solve the moped issue. The town council needs to mandate a direction. We need to enforce the current parking. We need to not be letting people out of tickets. Workers and owners cannot park on Water Street all day. Parking on Water Street when leaving for the day is a new issue. So there's a belief that people during the slower months are going off island for the day. They can't find parking and they're parking all day. I think it's probably legitimate based on the conversations with retail shop owners who see the same cars parked there all the time. We need to have offsite parking for workers is a big solution. Solve the moped issue and you solve the chaos in town. A $10 parking ticket is not going to change behaviors. Let's try some things and see what happens. Who cares if not everything works? Do something. Stop allowing taxi drivers from blocking solutions. And we need to try things, but for no reason, things seem to just stop. And that was one of the things that was quoted to that was the sign on Chapel Street, the no left turn sign that used to be there disappeared and no one's sure, did we agree we were changing it or did the sign just never go up one season and then it never went up again? So a little bit of who knows. So what I did on the brainstorming ideas to make it easier for the council and people to look at is there were 4 major buckets that things fell into. It was either traffic patterns or changing of rules. There was land use or locations, meaning acquiring land. There was need for new ordinances or enforcement, and then basically other things that fell into the solutions. So traffic patterns, again, some of it's redundant from what's in there, but some of the ideas were let's redirect ferry off-boarding cars around Finn's and up to Rebecca. No left turn coming off the interstate parking lot at Star Department Store. No left turn on or off Chapel Street. That was a big one because of the new taxi pulling in. That corner, people over and over kept saying has become a bigger issue than actually some of the other areas in town. All ferry cars must go right coming off the boat, so no left turn. one-way traffic on Water Street with angled parking, one-way traffic on Chapel Street and Weldon's Way, create alternate post office drops outside of town for the summer, close Chapel Street from Weldon's Way to Water Street, and ask Interstate to move taxis to the lower lot. So those were the traffic patterns or kind of directional changes. Land use or locations. Leasing St. Andrew's Lot in off hours of church services, buy or lease lot west of St. Andrews, currently owned by Charlene. Buy out the 2-year lease from Ned Phillips for lot above the post office. Create metered parking and land trust property north of Beachhead. Community center parking behind Aldo's. Lease the Narragansett lot and field. Sewer lot next to parking lot leased by Ned Phillips. Buy house in front of sewer plant and create parking. Create several metered parking and sewer plant parking spaces. Leverage space next to Calaveras on private property. Move all mopeds to the airport. Lease space from Block Island Grocery behind the gas station. Offsite parking at school, town hall, or the beach specified by hours of main usage of those locations. Buy or lease McGinnis gas station. And then the small space in front of Ballard's, could that be utilized differently? The new ordinance as enforcement would be limiting the number of cars per rental house, which we did discuss at the last meeting. Several realtors were here to discuss that. Enforce 2-hour parking allowing multiple tickets within 1 day. The thought there was, or $10 ticket, you get it once. People aren't incented to move their car. If you ticket it every 2 hours or whatever the rotation was, you see a difference. Next one was increase the price of the parking ticket. Feeling was at $10, no one's really going to worry about it. There was anecdotal information that the Overlook employees come down in their car together and they split the price of the ticket because it's easier to come down for their shift and not have to worry about finding a place to park. Create centralized parking kiosks for parking. So this was the don't go with meters on the street, do a kiosk where you buy your ticket, you put the ticket on the dash, and then the police officer can, or whoever's in charge of parking. Move ticket payments to town hall versus police station. That's more of a functional thing. Create online process to pay parking tickets. Create delivery times for trucks in town. So there was a belief that Cisco and all the different food service trucks create chaos when they're trying to deliver to various restaurants downtown. So create a time that only trucks can be delivering. Create delivery, a delivery only boat coming to the island, and then create fee for non-residents cars arriving to the island. The last section, kind of called other, would be revisit the trolley, boardwalk concept downtown and walking path, getting people from the boat to the beach faster. That's come up in a number of different studies. People tunnel from boat parking lot to the east side of Water Street, subsidizing parking in Narragansett, lower taxi cab rates, no riding 2-wheel vehicles on Water Street, mandate size of cabs allowed, building or researching town-owned dock, and fear of electric bikes becoming our next issue in town. So pretty lengthy group of things that, have come up. If you could jump to the grid. So what I did here was put all the solutions, and you can do a couple different ways on this grid. So this was effort and cost. So low effort, low cost would be things town could do fairly quickly, meaning in advance probably of this summer. Things that are, so those things on the bottom that are in green have low effort and low cost. As you move up and to the right, they become more more costly, and then they're higher effort to get stuff done. So you can see the things in green would be the easier things, yellow, medium, and red are probably the toughest things to push through. The other thing you can do with this grid is instead of doing either effort or cost, probably replace effort, is do impact. So then you could look at what's the quickest impact for the town and costs. So it could be another way that the grid could be divvied up to figure out what's the best approach for the town. The next steps, other than discussion, and this was just a quick and dirty list, present to town council. It's in progress. Schedule meeting with Land Trust and Nature Conservancy. That was about some of the locations. Schedule brainstorming with Interstate. I've already spoken with this guy over here. Get town plot map. It's completed. Count current parking spots as of today. The Respect Block Island study has a lot of information in it. They had volunteers in September sit out, count cars at the beach, count cars coming at various intersections, people, traffic. So there is a lot of good information in it. However, it didn't address how many actual parking spaces the town has today. So just to be able to size the prize, what do we have today and what will we be looking for? Meet with the new police chief and officers to get their perspective. Obviously, some of the information through the different surveys is the police are overtaxed with a lot of other things, don't always get to police, traffic, and parking the way they potentially would like to. So that could be an area. Meet with RIDOT. I think that's been an ongoing conversation and continues. Determine if more focus groups are needed or desired. Determine if additional surveys or consulting services are required. Schedule a work session to make recommendations for 2023 and beyond, and engage with the taxi group. So that's kind of a high-level summary of what the groups have been working on. And the big thing now is how the town council wants to approach next steps. And that's, does this committee go back, continue doing focus groups, getting more people involved? Obviously, there are some interested parties that have not been spoken to that were in the midst of being scheduled. Interstate obviously is a big partner to us, so they're critical. The police are critical, and as are other residents. So I open that up to discussion with the people in the room or on the phone, and then town council.
Before we get to chatting, I just wanted to thank you and Martha and Mary Ann for just taking this ball and running with it. It's really terrific. I also, just as an aside, I really like that grid, which is very helpful for someone like me, sort of the relative low effort, low cost, because I think it's important to keep in mind, as you may have said at the beginning, this has been going on for decades. It's not going to be fixed in a year, but I think I think you were quoting what I say to Susan after I have a glass of wine. We can't keep talking about this and doing nothing, and this is not the new issue. So I'm hopeful that that as you guys proceed, we get like whatever 2, 3, 4 concrete things that we can do near term, and that there's a long-term play as well, because it's going to take things every year. And by the way, some of the stuff we do, I think, maybe sort of like, well, that didn't work. That actually created 4 new problems. And we have to be, our minds have to be open to that work.
Yeah, and I think a good example of that was the meeting, the first meeting where there was a belief that the delivery trucks were an issue, right? Which, given time frame, maybe they are, right? Depending on when you go downtown, what boats in and whatnot. I did do a quick survey of several restaurants, and many of them do actually have the trucks pull into their driveways, the National, Mohegan, but not all, right? So, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I think there is an opportunity. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. That's so the short-term stuff in the lower grid are stuff that we can go, and then for planning, we can certainly especially given the time frame right now, if there are things in the upper right, great time to be having the conversation because the budget
Yep.
and whatnot. So
Absolutely. Thank you. Council, have any questions? One sec. Brad?
the idea of working with the delivery companies is great, but you also have to understand, you have to talk with them about that. They base their deliveries on how they pack their drugs. And needless to say, they have a lot of deliveries. Personally, I would love to have my products delivered early in the morning, not at 6 p.m. in the evening. Okay, but I still think that would be both that closing all the thing you're saying what you Travis as well. What you think we live the area today. A lot of folks move back in the area last like that area, but it's not. For some reason, they can't back in anywhere.
Right.
They have to deliver based on how the truck is loaded. So that's, they have a lot of things. It's an idea where you can't do anything with that. Yeah, and the whole idea of the brainstorming is not to shoot down any idea of it can't be done, because then you kind of destroy the opportunity to create a unique solution.
Mhm.
So next steps would be prioritizing this. And if that ended up being one, then obviously you end up to engage with Cisco, all the food companies.
So what do you think about next steps? Should we, oh, I'm sorry, Chris, come on up. I didn't make Brad come up because he's still recuperating.
But you're limping, so
Right,
maybe we should let you.
exactly.
I should not be the last 5 days. That was bad. I want to talk about the Slavican property because you had mentioned it with the land trust and the Block Island Conservancy. For many years, I had a lease which was on the other side of that. And the reality is that is being used by a restaurant for employee parking. That's not in their parking plan. And I don't like the idea of putting meters at Slavican personally. I think it kind of takes away from the nice parts of Block Island. But if that restaurant was required to have their employees park on their own property, as they said they would, that would solve a lot of the problems. I have watched for years employees of the restaurant parking there and then walking to the restaurant, and anecdotally being told that the management said, you cannot park in our parking lot, you need to park at the Slavican. And that's just one extremely small part of this whole thing.
Right.
But I think that would be a great way of opening up some more parking.
Yeah, so great information. So I did speak to the land trust very briefly as they broke from a meeting about the opportunity to get on their agenda, and that was their big item. I'm not saying they were open to what we want to do, but it was more of, hey, can we talk about maybe what we can do? And they said their biggest complaint, and they tell the beachhead over and over, is your employees cannot park here, but it hasn't solved the situation. So one of the solutions, and I'm not saying we'll get there, could be if you allow the town to monitor parking on that private property, then you potentially get the stick that helps keep people from parking there for long term.
I would ask the building official to enforce the parking plan.
Yeah.
And that should do it, I think.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of Nick Solitro?
Sure.
I hate to start off or have this early, but how do parking ticket fines work? Are they capped? Is there, I don't, this is since I always park legally anywhere, I'm unfamiliar with the parking ticket policies.
So across the board in town, our parking fines are $20. Just by way of example, I did look at other cities and towns. Providence, for an expired meter, they're at 25. For violation in a no parking zone, they're at $30. Pawtucket is $25 across the board. Narragansett is $35. So while not significantly lower, we are lower than other cities and towns, so that might be something we may want to explore. Especially in the context of a comment that was made that certain folks are saying, well, I'd just rather pay the ticket than have to deal with parking my own car down there. So I don't think the fine should be huge, but we are on the lower end of other cities and towns, so that might be something we might want to look at.
Thank you, Nick.
I would say I do know that that was an issue, not just downtown, but on on the Neck Road, there are certain places where you're not supposed to park. People used to park, and I think this goes back to when Bill McComb was police chief. I had one guy who came in, at least that's what he told me, every
It's all
day.
Bill McComb's fault.
It's
We
all
could- we
Bill
could-
McComb's fault. But I guess I feel like looking at fines and looking at, this is a philosophical thing. I want to modify people's behavior. I don't want to just be collecting money. And I feel like that's what we look at, and as if that's going to change things. It's not. It's like if you charge more money for cars in the boat, you're just going to get more expensive cars. That's not, high level economics. That's just tried and true. Talk to any other resort communities. that
For
relies on a
Martha
boat.
made me
For the record, I was just curious about what
Yeah,
our
like,
parking
yeah.
fines were and what. parking
Yeah, and
fines were in
Martha
other
made me
towns.
just, when she was saying that, I remember my train of thought now from 5 minutes ago. So part of the vetting process of all of these things has to be all of the things, the unintended consequences. And one of them that came up in the meeting that we started to solve for when we didn't need to be doing it was when we were talking about bringing a special boat over with delivery only trucks. Someone said, so we're like, yeah, this could be great. And then someone's like, but wait, that opens up more car spots now on the regular ferry. So now you have more cars coming over. So the unintended consequence of the solve could actually create more problems. Now, I could argue both sides of that, but I do think the vetting of whatever solutions does need definitely more fine tuning as to what are we doing? So
I would say Keith, I'm sorry, not Keith. Neil did an extraordinary job pulling together all the old surveys, which is something that really, really needed to be done and hasn't been. But I did say to him at one point, sometimes if something is proposed every 10 years by a different person and it doesn't get done, it might be because it's just a really lousy idea, which goes back to the vetting. You get different people who come in and look at it and say, oh, we're going to do this. And I'm just getting old and cranky, but man, I've been through so many of these things and heard so many of these, well, this will work. And then you go, okay, we tried that. Oh, we didn't know that. Well, yeah, you weren't here. It was only 15 years ago. And that's always a level of frustration. You feel like you have to take a year just to get people past their own revisionist history of Block Island and who owns what property.
Sven?
Real quickly, great job by the group and all the people that volunteered. I think we should go to that bottom left corner, for those that remember, that was the low impact, low cost. And as a group, and then let's start looking at, obviously, some of them are going to be about the chief. Some of them are, talking with the police force. Some of them are going to be about fees. I agree with Martha. We should look at the impact versus the dollars. But I do believe that there are people parking knowing they're going to get a ticket and knowing that they can cost average it and it's not a big deal. So I think multiple tickets in a day or something like that. So I would just target on that right now and figure out how we can help, I guess, as a council. And let's try and get some things done, especially the left turns. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah, I almost got hit today.
Huh?
I was going out of Chapel Street.
I'm sorry, Martha.
Somebody came slamming around. And thankfully I was going slow enough that I was able to stop. But it was a big truck.
It's like a deer.
So getting
It
really
wasn't Bill McComb either.
getting very practical and schedule-y on this, do you want to, and maybe I should ask this after you and Molly do yours, Sven, but do we want to do a work session where we sort of drill down on, some concrete recommendations after you've talked to some people and met with the chief and all that kind of stuff? Or
yeah, so the
tell me what you think.
third week of each month, which is considered a work session, right? is that allowed to be recommendations, or is that supposed to be just like a fact finding? Because what I'd rather, I mean, we're in March. I don't want to drag this out with
Right.
some to spend the point. There are some very easy things. So we can get people aligned on them. I would much rather come back to our next meeting and have the opportunity to say,
Great.
here are the 5 things we want to recommend the town
Great.
do.
So,
And-
why don't, for our next meeting, I don't want to take up people's time looking through my calendar, but the earliest full council meeting in April.
Okay.
Does that sound
So
good?
April 3rd.
Is the third? Is it the third?
And then we have a work session on the 5th.
Let's shoot for the third tentatively and we'll figure it out together, okay?
Can I make a suggestion
Please.
that, working through it, it'd be great if Marianne and the chief could be here, assuming that some of those left turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think
Very
the chief
important.
is critical.
key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Great.
Well, I will just say one thing. Mary, I was talking to Mary Ann the other day and she said something about parking signs and 2-hour parking. And where was that ever written down or codified? I said, we just did it. She said, you really just can't do that. And I said, well, why not? By the time they figure it out, but I do think she's right. And
Yeah.
she is trying to get some order in this
And
town.
I think
So
she's
so
right, but
I've put that on the list that we have an ordinance to verify what's on the books right now for 2-hour parking. Because in
Right.
theory,
Well, that
you
just,
could go and argue your parking ticket, but it's not an ordinance for
Well-
2-hour parking, and then you can't.
well,
but it isn't just 2 hours. It's where you can park. There are certain places you can't park.
can you and Neil and Marianne get together with Nick and talk to Nick and I guess Nick to sort of fly spec where we would need to do ordinance changes for any.
I think
Absolutely.
Mary Ann can do that.
Yeah, Marianne, that's great. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Very encouraging. Sven and Molly, messaging and signage.
Oh, is that what this is?
Okay, so Sven and the town manager and I have gotten together to talk about beach sign, or not necessarily just beach signage and messaging for some of the different topics that have been problematic over the last couple of years. So we are not finished. We still need to meet with several other people, just as Neil and Martha do. So we still need to meet with Mike Shea on the roads, and we still need to meet with the police chief. We still need to meet with Sea Level Rise, Judy Gray. But we will have beach signage. We will have beach signage at the entrances that will just state what our expectation is. Right now, the list that we have would be no alcohol allowed, dogs must be leashed, carry in and carry out with trash, no littering, and staying off the dunes, which are a fragile environmental area. Then we're going to have signage in the downtown area and in New Harbor. Well, let's see, let me state this better. Signage that will be in quite a few places that would be related to underage drinking and no open container. So these would be hopefully in all the rental homes, all the businesses that have a liquor license, in businesses downtown, in taxis, on ferries and other public transportation, in public buildings, and in Old Harbor and New Harbor. So this would be signage related to that you must be 21 to purchase, transport, or consume alcohol, and that we have no drinking in public, no open container. So a lot of these places already have information like that, but we would like it to be more pervasive. Is that right? Okay.
Terrific. Thank you.
So the other topic that everybody on the council has a copy of, and if you want to see it, I think Laurel, there are a couple other copies, but this is about messaging. And Mary Ann and Molly and I talked about this a lot. And the goal is really to help set the tone for the island. Last year, we had some incidences that received international press, and I'm not sure it was quite the tone that we all wanted. The year before that, we had some issues that received regional press. And then we had COVID before that, which created other tensions. And so the goal is, how do we set the tone, which is really about expectations. And I think, I hope, at least on the council, that there's a lot of alignment around the concept. We started working on this and been in touch with a lot of people. And the first way that we talked about doing this was to communicate to visitors regarding those expectations, was to do a social media digital campaign that in essence would talk about these expectations in a positive but declarative way. I'll use Molly's example of no open containers, for example. I have since talked now with 3 different agencies about the idea of a digital social media. The concept would be, we make a post, we'll go and get it shared, and in a way you filter out to people through shared posts. And the overall reaction to the concept, well, I thought it was good, was that it wouldn't fly and it wouldn't work. And the reason it wouldn't work is they won't get shared. The reason it won't work, I mean, there were many reasons they felt that. So through these interviews and through these discussions, there were 2 other paths that I think we as a subgroup need to
Can I just
pursue.
interrupt? So the original idea is what you're saying.
Right.
They said just wouldn't get enough traction with the audience.
Yep. It
Okay.
wouldn't actually get reach to the audience because, right now, if we were to post and just say, somebody were to share it out, that may happen once, but probably wouldn't
Okay.
happen again. And if we're trying to get 90 days of this, it definitely won't happen. So conceptually, it sounded good. The 2 ideas that they strongly suggested, and I really would like to talk to Jess about it and others who have more experience, is one is paid digital advertising. On paid digital advertising, that means, I think as you all know, if you're going to suddenly go on a vacation and you look at Colorado, suddenly next time you're on, something pops up about Colorado. And here, if you're looking at Block Island or taking a vacation in a summer resort, whatever those key words are, we could have these kind of messages be present. One is paid digital advertising. The other is a press release PR campaign. And as some of you know, that has been very effective. Matt Moynihan used it very effectively. And I think we as a subgroup need to talk about those. We as a subgroup need to come up with a recommendation and also talk to agencies about it. And that'll happen in the next week or 2. So I think we're moving forward on that. And the hope is that this summer we can execute a test or a beta. Just to be very clear, for those that are wondering, this is hopefully in concert with tourism. And Jess and her group and the group, this is not about, talking about how great Block Island is and the attractiveness. It's setting expectations when you're coming, and it's saying things like very much the signs that the words that Motley used: carry in, carry out, leash your dogs, things about expectations for people coming to the island. Second strategy about this whole messaging piece is about the ferry. The ferry was very generous last year to make announcements around no open containers when the boats were entering the harbor here. And we are reaching out to them right now, and hopefully that'll happen again. And in a concert, just to, again, set expectations and make sure that people know what the guidelines are here. We are also exploring paid advertising on the ferry. And Marianne and Megan have been talking, and we'll see how that goes. But I think that could be very effective, just making sure that now there's print, there's an audio, and hopefully we have some form of either PR or paid digital. Next steps, get feedback here, meet with the subgroup, and then start looking at agencies and coming up with a recommendation for the town council. thoughts, questions?
Thank you both.
Um,
Please. Yeah.
I forgot to add one thing that I had made a note about, which is, like so many people are watching these meetings online. I know at our last meeting, we had 2 people here. We get a big crowd tonight, but, we had 2 people here and the next day I heard from 4 or 5 different people about the meeting because they had listened to it. So I just want to say, whether you're here or elsewhere, email us because these issues we're going to work on pretty quickly. And we may not have all the ideas, we may not have all the input. If you think you've got a great idea, all of our email addresses, excuse me, are on the website, the town website. Also, when Sven is talking about the ferry, that's interstate. Primarily what you're talking about is interstate. And I think we tend to focus on interstate because that's who we use, because we live here. But there are 2 other ferry companies and we are reaching out to those 2 ferry companies as well. I don't want to single out interstate. They're not the sole business transporting people here. And that message needs to be disseminated on all ferries, not just theirs.
And just to further, sorry, just to further that, in addition to ferries, the point would be also embarkation points. So marinas, making sure that the signage is at marinas, because a lot of people come in, we all know this, right? So things are underway.
That's true.
So the one other comment, go ahead, Mark.
No, my only comment was, as far as correspondence goes, Emma was saying this. I think correspondence to the town council is supposed to be directed to the town clerk's office and forwarded out to the council.
Great.
And people don't tend to do that. Some are very, very good about it, but others don't. And so we end up with council people having to send it to the town clerk's office and having to forward it out. And it's just, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it can turn into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other avenue you may want to look at, and it's anecdotal just from my experience with guests coming to the inn, is they've already grabbed the guide from, so I get a stock of them to give the guests, but 99% of the time they already have them from the boat or from the Chamber of Commerce. If it's a catchy 1-pager in there, a lot of people look at it. If it's just I know it's print, which
Good advice.
is
Yeah,
kind of
well,
fading, but it could be another avenue to reach because everyone tends to look at that.
One of the things I would add that Mary Ann has been working on with the chief that I think is an important component that we haven't talked about tonight is what things the police department or the community service officers or whomever can do in terms of counter messaging, because I do think social media is so much faster than our ability to respond to it. But being able to have someone who is aware that on platform X, there's a lot of chatter about a party that's going on, south of the Ballards Beach, would be helpful if we could A, know that, and B, potentially counter message some of that. I know we've talked to a bunch of people who are here tonight about that, but it's definitely front of mind as the planning for the summer goes with Mary Ann and the chief. So does an April 3rd update make sense to you? Okay. Any questions from anybody? Bill? No, because there's only 2 members who are going to. Yeah.
If you're thinking about any subcommittee, like one of the 2, glad to have you
Yeah,
join for some of them. I mean,
Come along.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Making some progress. Okay, we now move to agenda item 8. Discuss and act on requests of Austin Moore and Queer Block Island regarding a resolution calling for the designation of an official annual LGBTQ Pride holiday in the state of Rhode Island and change the name of Victory Day to Ocean State Day. And B, a resolution to approve the installation of 4 permanent rainbow crosswalks on Weldon's Way. So I'm happy to start on this. What's that? No. Oh, terrific. Great. I didn't know. Thank you so much. Come on up. Oh, great. Hey, Austin. Hi.
Thank you. Hello. Okay. Sorry, thank you. I would like to thank you for considering these agenda items and resolutions. If we look around today, there are more and more anti-LGBTQ+ bills that are being introduced around the country. This past week alone, Tennessee has banned drag events and gender-affirming healthcare. In a world where there are more and more divisive actions, Block Island has an opportunity by passing these resolutions to continue to showcase that this is a safe and welcoming place for all. I have been a strong ally and advocate of the LGBTQ+ community my whole life. I'm committed to advancing the cause of the LGBTQ+ rights and inclusivity in this community. It has been amazing to see the island welcome the Pride events these past few years. Our first year we had 150 people. Last year we had 400 people. And this year's annual Pride will take place September 14th to 17th. And we anticipate that the number of attendees will rise and follow the trend set by the past 2 years. These events were done safely and with excellent support from town leadership and local businesses. Not only that, these events extended the business season past Labor Day and brought additional revenue to the local economy. By allowing these crosswalks on Weldon's Way, this will increase visibility and awareness of Block Island Pride, an event that continues to focus on love, affirmation, and community, supporting a marginalized population. This will also demonstrate that Block Island is an inclusive and affirming space year-round. We acknowledge the financial aspects of this request, but firmly believe this will help welcome all visitors and residents to the island. We have submitted a funding proposal to the Tourism Council. If that is not granted, we are prepared to fundraise to cover the cost of these crosswalks. By passing the resolution to have an official designated state pride holiday, Block Island and Rhode Island will be the first in the nation to make a statement of this kind, a statement of acceptance and recognition of worth for the LGBTQ+ community that has long been marginalized and discriminated against. Block Island has the country's first offshore wind farm. Why shouldn't we lead the country as the first stage to formalize Pride as a holiday? The Block Island Town Council has historically been welcoming and supportive of measures that support the LGBTQ+ community. We are asking tonight that that support continues as it pertains to these resolutions brought forth by Queer Block Island. Tonight, I'm asking the Town Council to vote yes on these 2 resolutions that will continue our record of support and further strengthen Block Island's reputation as a safe and wonderful place for everyone to visit. Thank you. And then Austin has his.
Thank you, Aaron.
Hi, am I allowed to speak now?
You certainly are, Austin.
Okay, thank you all for giving me the space right now. And I also want to thank Aaron for making that statement.
Oh, wait, hold on one second, Austin, and I hate to be this guy, but you actually can't participate in this meeting via Zoom according to state law. So
Okay.
now that we're out of the emergency, the Open Meetings Act requirements are sort of back in effect when it as it relates to public participation electronically. This is not something that I was frankly especially happy about, but it is the rule. Like Nick Solitro can be on, or our town planner can be on, staff can be on, but we can't take input electronically. And it pains me to say that, but it's one of the burdens of chairing these meetings is that we have to do this stuff. And I'm so sorry, Austin.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad that Aaron could have made this statement. And
Yes.
eagerly watch from
Thank
off
you,
island.
Austin. So sorry about that. I hope everything's going well.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem.
Aaron, do you know whether there is a proposal or a piece of legislation or something that we would be supporting in terms of this changing Victory Day to Ocean State Day and a Pride holiday? Yeah, sorry, Aaron.
Sorry, I don't currently know of any legislation. So we had proposed, I guess the second resolution kind of has two parts. We were hoping just to change the name Victory over Japan Day to Ocean State Day.
So it's no longer Victory over Japan Day. They changed it to Victory Day.
Just Victory Day.
Just saying.
Okay,
Not,
thank you.
I'm not I'm now the voice of two things.
I'll deal with that one. When I was a little kid, not terribly long after World War II, there was Victory over Europe Day, which is May 8th, I believe. And there was Victory over Japan Day, which was in August. And at some point, Victory over Europe sort of disappeared because, I don't know. I think Rhode Island and Arkansas were the only ones that had Victory over Japan. And it's long been Victory Day. People still call it VJ Day. It hasn't been that for a very, very, very long time. And there is only one holiday. So that's the basic premise here is just isn't. I mean, I'll say it. I truly believe the only reason we really, really, really have a holiday is it's a summer holiday. I think if it were in November, everybody would go.
So I did Google in advance of the meeting, and there was nothing I could find on the state website as to current legislation regarding this. But I think if I heard you correctly, your goal was to put it out there from the standpoint of safety and setting a tone versus what's happening in other states. So it certainly makes sense. I was going to actually jump in on the resolution for the sidewalks just to ask, what did we do last year? What the town approved? Okay. all right.
Let's do them. Let's do
Okay.
them one at a time. So I'll just speak for myself personally. I would be very willing to consider a resolution that is around safety and inclusiveness, sort of all of those. I don't want to miss one particular word. If you would like to bring that, Aaron. I'm actually not comfortable, and I frankly not only vote for it, I advocate for this stuff. This one to me just doesn't make my like. I worry that we do a resolution that has nothing to do with anything that's even before the legislature. But there may well be pieces of legislation that are quite disturbing that I would find disturbing, and I would be happy personally to look at those. I can't speak for every member of the council, but knowing them, I'm sure that that would be actively considered. But that's just my own opinion.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Last year, we also had, didn't we? I think you wrote it, Keith, a proclamation for the fall event. Which I think is far more to
Yes.
the point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be in favor of any resolution that jumbled two things together like this. Anyway, particularly when one is based on a false premise.
If you're
But
there's
can we go back to the sidewalks?
right there's no one who's not reading this stuff, and there's no one who's reading this stuff who everybody knows what's going on in a lot of states around the country. So please, I would when there's stuff you feel like we can do, come and ask us and we'll talk about it and debate it. Now on to sidewalks. What are your feelings about the sidewalks?
Well, my question was, what have we done to date? What
So
did the town approve in the past?
I'll
I
give you,
should know, but I don't.
I'll give you my recollection and then probably Martha and Sven can chime in theirs. Austin approached us and it actually took us a while to figure out where there was a crosswalk that wasn't on a state road. That was the thing that took the most time, and sort of going through the, like, what can we do? What can't we do? I'll tell you, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to be anything but frank. My concern about coming to the council for permission to create 4 permanent rainbow crosswalks on Weldon's Way is, what do we do next when the next group asks? So my own opinion about this is that I sort of I actually think we should ask Mary Ann and Mike Shea and others to look at what are other towns and cities doing about this, because I don't want to be in a position where I don't know, it becomes like you know, every week we get a different request, and we're in a position of having an agenda item. And by the way, I don't think this is an overstatement. This will happen every week, every council meeting all summer. Someone's going to be asking to repaint a crosswalk for whatever. And then they'll be on this scale where we have to make this weird value decision about this stuff. So this is, again, just my opinion. I would say that we should ask Mary Ann and Mike to look into how other towns and cities deal with this, and you know, what's their approach. I don't have any idea. So that's my thought.
I think,
So, oh, go ahead.
no, all I was going to say is, I think there are places that do things for a day, or like the Chicago River
Right.
and
Right.
that sort of thing. But that's not a permanent
Right.
installation. Chicago River that turns miraculously green on St. Patrick's Day, but
It's incredible how that happens.
and how do they not make it turn blue
Right.
the rest of the time?
Well, I was going to say, I think we have to start at the beginning, right? Which is, first of all, are all 4 of those crosswalks legal crosswalks? One of those crosswalks ends at a dumpster. So I don't even think that crosswalk should be there. I don't know if anybody, you know, like, there's 2 crosswalks right smack in the middle of the road. I don't even think those should be there. They're haphazard at best on a road that where haphazard is like the nicest word you could say about it. Then we have to move to, do we want to paint our crosswalks? Like, not rainbow or anything else, not like, remove that. Do we want to be painting crosswalks? We have to decide that. And if so, we then have to move on to, when do we paint them? Who paints them? How long does the paint stay? Who's in charge of maintaining that when it starts to wear off? I just think it's more of a process, not the topic, or not the presentation, which are all really nice looking. But I think we need to start at the beginning of our process and decide how and when and how it's going to be maintained and all of that. And I don't like the word permanent.
Just an example of a crosswalk back there. There's the one that comes, maybe the one Molly's referencing. You go down the alley beside the seaside and you go down the steps, makes all the sense in the world. That oh, there's a crosswalk. Great. You go across the street and you're on nothing. Yeah, there's nothing. And that was one that as I recall, that was one of the things. And I don't remember if it was Matt Moynihan or
It was
Al
Bill
Davis
McComb. We've already
both,
established
no.
that It was
Who-
all Bill McComb.
Hush, who
She was gonna compliment, so forget that.
who said, you can't even, it's not even a legal crosswalk. And I never thought about it. Then I looked at it and thought, it's really great on one end, but on the other side of the street, it's
Right.
so,
Go ahead, Sven.
The other, when Marianne and Mike talk, I think they should talk with Nick about sort of what are the legal and implications of, and the police chief, thank you, Martha. Because I don't mean this the wrong way, if we were to permanently change and it's not the white reflect, sort of the certified paint,
yeah.
what does that mean if somebody were to get hurt? And I think we better understand liabilities on that case. I'm sort of with Molly, the permanent scares me. Temporary is an idea and an event, and but I think there's some insurance questions and legal questions we just need to
Sure.
know.
Anything?
Yeah, no, I would go with when Austin and I talked previously was, there's a whole diversity schedule out there, right? So there's Black History Month, there's Hispanic
Right.
history. So as we go forward and we make it accepting, which is what we should be doing, if it's permanent, it becomes difficult when we want to paint it Hispanic colors or whatever the right
Right.
term is. So I think a temporary solution is good for painting it. Lots of cities do this, so I'm sure they've already gone through the insurance.
Right.
I don't think it's temporary is the bigger item. Yeah.
Great. Yes, Socha. No, come on up. If you don't have crutches, you got to come up.
So if the goal is for us to appear welcoming, the first place that you see when you get off the boat is the Tourism Council building. Chamber of Commerce, thank you. The Chamber.
That's why Jess comes.
I was sitting there thinking, now what do
Welcome
we
center.
call that building? I wasn't sure what it was called. Anyway, so we want to be welcoming. The first thing people see is that building. It has, I don't know, is it legal to have a flag, a rainbow flag on that building that announces it right there up front? You don't need any painting or anything. As far as signage goes, that building has, I think, 2 or 3 big signs that very nicely explain what the trails are on the island, but I don't believe it has a sign that spells out some of the quote rules. That's it.
And I know that's front of mind for Molly and Sven and Marianne, that particular spot. I assume that if there's a flagpole there, a pride flag would be acceptable. But you don't, I think what you're hearing
Different
from us,
subject.
Aaron, is that we're like philosophically in. There are practical things that we need to figure out. Kim?
Kim Gavitt. And this is just along the lines of philosophical conversation for tonight. So you have 3 items before you. The one you were just talking about, the crosswalks. I mean, I'm all for the crosswalks, but maybe you need, but I understand all your ideas about different, it's Women's History Month right now. So maybe since it is a town road, we should start treating that like a town place for art and designate a place on the road that can be
I love
appealed
that
to
idea.
have different organizations paint whenever they want, and it'd be a process through the town manager's office to get. So let's take charge of that and forget about traffic concerns. Let's just make a little public art on our publicly owned road instead of having it. Well, anyway.
Yes.
Okay, so
I love that idea.
secondly, I'm not going to go into the Victory Day thing, but The other idea you're talking about, the resolution regarding designating a day for Pride in June, a state or state recognized holiday. I think that sometimes you just have to be bold, and there's lots of times where the town comes up and they want to gain something and they pass a resolution, they design and pass a resolution and then go to our legislators and ask them to draft a bill and carry it forward and start the ball. And it doesn't always happen right away.
Yep.
It takes a few times up there, but if you're philosophically behind, and I would be, and I hope the community would be, to be again the first in a nation to do something of that, why not be bold and take action and have a resolution promoting it and ask our legislators to draft the appropriate bills and take it as far as it'll go over the next several years.
I don't, I mean, I hope that when I was talking to Aaron about this particular resolution, that's kind of what I was communicating, like, I'm not unwilling to,
Go for it.
yeah,
Well,
let's. talk
So
about
when Tina Spears was here, our state representative, she asked me, or she asked all of us, like, what would you like to see? And I said, I would like to see Victory Day go away and become a day of service statewide. I think from her facial expression, that wasn't going to be the hill she was going to die on in her first term.
But-
I'm separating those, right?
Yeah, right. Yes.
Just,
yeah, I
just
get it.
saying, like, but I agree. I totally agree that,
I'm not talking about the Victory Day one. I'm talking about the other one.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
It's all in the same.
It's the
No,
same.
you say
two.
promoting the one in June and the change. I know, well, I'm saying if you agree with that one part, I understand about the victory part. Take it the next step and have a resolution for the day in June that would make it a designated state. Isn't that what the June part is about? Separating it. He wasn't saying replace.
Yep.
Right?
No, they're two.
Two. The first one, go for it. And pass your own resolution supporting it and get we have legislators, get them to draft up the legislation and see,
Yep.
start the ball for the union.
Sure.
Oh,
All right,
do
Aaron,
we
go
know
ahead.
where Juneteenth is right now? What, I thought they called it Juneteenth. Right, but do they, where, I meant where it was in the calendar, or is it a state holiday yet? That came up at a school committee meeting.
Yeah, it's a federal holiday. I didn't see it online as a state holiday yet.
I don't think it is.
From a school standpoint, if we were to still be in school on June 19th, which we've tried to avoid this year, we would choose to observe Juneteenth.
Right.
You don't have to.
You don't have
Okay,
to.
that was my
But
question
they
right now.
are, the rest of, if anybody who follows the state calendar is taking that as being observed as a holiday for schools.
Gotcha.
We won't be in school still then.
But is state government closed? I'm just curious. I wonder. Okay. Item 9, discuss and act on requests of motor vehicles for hire commission. Increase in the taxi rates.
Okay. I'm going to recuse for this.
Thank you, Molly.
So we're not taking any action at all on any of this, other than
Right.
refer the possibility of temporary paintings.
Yes. I like the idea of art. I love that art installation idea.
Yeah,
Brad, can
really,
you make it?
I think if you got a few recommendations from us, there was a request from you to see whether or not it was deemed a good idea to do away with the fuel surcharge that was put on last season. Okay, fuel charges have gone down slightly recently, but this is the time of year when they normally do, and they really haven't this season, and they do go up quite measurably once the season hits. So right now, with the added cost and everything out there, that we did not feel that was a good recommendation. okay, to do away with that surcharge. There were a couple other issues that were on there as well, just on the rates themselves. And I don't have that in front of me right now, but the one rate request that we did put on there was historically, years ago, Martha may remember, you know, there used to be a late night charge for, well, you had the taxi, you know. There used to be a late night upcharge after 11 a.m. from 11 a.m. to I believe it was 1 a.m. of $1 for late night. And we did away with that. In an effort to, it was brought up at one of our last meetings, the thought was to, there is still a call for taxis. If few people do it after 2 a.m. They're usually putting up with riders that may not be in the, it may be an interesting ride, let's put it like that. And in an effort to get drivers to do that, we said that maybe we should institute a late night charge from running from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. okay, of $5 to entice some additional drivers out there to service that time frame. So that was the intent of that as well. I think you have the rest of it in front of you too.
All we have is a rate card.
I'm sorry.
All we got in our packet was a rate card.
Okay, that rate card didn't have any.
There was
It didn't know what
there was
changed
no
or-
rationale. There
You had
was
to compare
no
year on year.
background, and that's what I was going to say is I'm not disinclined, but we were vested with rate authority, and at least I need more than just a packet that has, here's the rate card.
Right, I would agree with
and-
that, but
and
we
I-
had, at our last meeting, we had requests, they put forth a description on answering your request as well as what we were proposing. And evidently that's not, is that just on the rate card?
There is a cover letter summarizing it, but it doesn't have any background.
Oh, I didn't even have that on ClearPace. Yeah.
I see the rate card, I didn't see the letter.
Memorandum.
They must have done a hard copy for you.
I'm special.
You are. Absolutely. No debate here.
So in synopsis was there was a proposal to increase the rate from, in what, I think it was on, Hillside Road?
Yes.
Right now, Sue can describe it as.
Do
as
you
a
want me to
taxi
read it?
driver.
I have it.
It notes, increased taxi rates for bike fee, tour rate,
He's got it.
base rate from town to bluffs, and adding a zone on Champlain roads, lowering the minimum fare. But didn't,
No, it doesn't lower the minimum fare. It lowers the age.
oh, sorry,
Yes.
minute fare age.
So 4-year-olds get charged
Yeah.
now.
Because bikes have gotten so much bigger and they're a little bit hard to carry, we had proposed that they be increase the bike rate from $2 to $3. Okay, for the taxi drivers. Lowering the minimum age for payment from 6 years to 4 years for the riders. Okay, increasing the hourly tour rate because to entice people to do more tours. And it is, you know, this is based on 4 people, from $75 to $90. Because right now when it's busy out, tours are not always the most popular. Okay, adding $2 more for any fare starting from New Harbor area, anywhere west of Bridge Street on Ocean Avenue, and ending at the Bluffs or Lighthouse area, therefore increasing the fare from $16 to $18. Because right now, as it's understood, you can go from New Harbor to Old Harbor, and to do it effectively, you don't go, if you want to go to the Lighthouse, they don't go through downtown, they go the long way around. Because there's just too much traffic in an effort to reduce the traffic. And then adding a zone, which is a $2 increase from Charlestown Beach to including anything past Charlestown Beach, heading toward the Coast Guard Station. I'm not sure that's verbally the right way to say it. Okay. And then, and you should not have gotten just the rate card on that. You should have this memo as well. And then also the motor vehicle proposed to retain the fuel charge of $1 per fare. Okay, and reinstate the after hours, as I described it to you, surcharge of $5, but that would strictly be from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. So the base rate would go from $12 to $17 for that time frame, in an effort to entice some drivers to actually run that time frame.
So for what it's worth, my packet didn't have any of that stuff in it. I have, I mean, as I say, I'm not necessarily disinclined, but I'm frankly underwhelmed by, like, we don't have what the old rate is, we don't have what the new rate is, we don't have what the history of the rates are. We don't have any of that stuff that you would expect a rate regulator to be able to competently say, yeah, this makes sense. And I'm happy to do that, you know, if you know, if that can be put together. When does the fuel charge, like, I remember that we voted on that, but what's the range? You know, when is the fuel charge kind of no longer, does that no longer make sense? Is it at
When the fuel charge
250 a
surcharge
gallon?
was-
Is that?
When it was initially put in years ago, when the rates went up very high, and there was no end date on it. It was something to be looked at each year. Okay, and then it was done away with, and then we came back to, because rates, insurance, everything were going up so much. We said we need to have that this year,
Mhm.
meaning last
That
year.
was
Yeah.
21.
Okay.
21?
Yeah, okay. And then we were looking at it this year and coming back, you also requested we need to relook at it. And we did, and we just simply said that right now fuel rates are not going, at the time we were looking at, fuel rates were not going down.
Right.
Recently, they did on the national news this evening. They even mentioned it, but also expecting rates to go up much higher than last summer for this coming summer as well,
Mhm.
which is why we propose not doing away with it for this season.
So the one comment I would make on this is the taxi rates are driving more people bringing cars here. And that is every guest that stays at the inn who brings their car. And if you've driven by my lot, and I know lots of you take them to the inn, their answer is always, by the time I pay for parking and take a $20 cab ride for a mile and a half, it's cheaper for me to take my car. So, and I think other hoteliers would tell you the same thing.
I
The
would beg
guests
to
are
differ on
doing-
that. I am a hotelier.
Okay.
Okay, a very large hotelier. I don't think I've ever had a guest tell me that they're bringing a car here because of tax rates. Not one
No, no,
time
no,
in
no.
30 years.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. The combination of parking on the other side and paying $20. So when a guest calls and says, I'm on a budget, what's it gonna cost me for a taxi? How many people are you? And then I share it's $15 or above, depending on the number of people in a taxi. The answer is always, well, I'm only staying 2 nights. It's cheaper for me to bring my car.
I'm not sure how that's going to compare to the mainland, that sort of thing. I can honestly say I've never once had that discussion with guests. It's never come up for me personally, as well as most of the other large properties, I would say. But to my knowledge, and I don't think it's being driven by taxi fares. Parking on the other side, possibly. The fact that they can get a car over here relatively inexpensively compared to other island locations, I think that should be something that should be looked at, and also limiting the number of vehicles allowed at the rentals. My personal rental, I limit it to 2 cars. You want to bring another one? No. End of subject.
Right.
Okay. You make your plans alternatively. But I mean, honestly, I mean, from my understanding and that of the people on the taxi commission, I don't think people are bringing vehicles here because of taxi rates. I mean, if you compare our rates,
I'm just telling you firsthand for the last 2 summers. The first summer I was learning, last 2 summers, over and over repeat, it's cheaper for me to bring my car, even if I don't use it frequently. So it's a conversation of one. So
you might be right on that, but not because of the taxes, but okay.
no. That's what I'm saying. The combined cost of bringing the car versus not bringing the car. If you jump in the taxi, so if a guest comes to the inn, now granted, I'm a mile and a half from town, they're spending $50 a day to come and go multiple times. Multiply that by 3 times, that's $150 they've spent while they're here. Their car, to bring their car over, is still cheaper. So it is absolutely driving more car traffic here. Again, from the guests that I get is what they're sharing. And I had that conversation with someone today. Can I get a car reservation? I don't know, call and ask, but it's gonna be cheaper for me if I'm staying 3 nights to bring my car.
Based on Keith's comments, I think it would be very, very helpful to have a recommended last year and a run rate a little bit I literally, Laurel, thank you. I literally have the last 7 years here, so I sat there penning it. But I think it would be really good if we could get that and have this discussion in the next meeting or something like that, whenever it's rescheduled. The two thoughts I did want to just check in, though. I can't imagine picking somebody up between 2 and 5 a.m. So I'm all in for that extra thing, because I can just imagine what those cab rides must be like. But some of the others, including the fuel charge, I look forward to discussing. The one thing that I noticed in the old rates was the notice that rates do not include 7% Rhode Island sales tax. In last year's and this year's proposed, there's no notation about sales tax. And so they're blank. And so my question is to clarify on the rate card whether the rate does or doesn't include the 7% tax, only because it's obviously different. So we can do that at the next meeting, or we can do it later if you want, but I'm just pointing it out.
We can certainly do it at a future meeting, sales tax, the taxi drivers are independent business owners. They have to pay the sales tax now.
Right.
I know. Okay. It's always been a little bit open to interpretation how you do the sales tax, because as an independent business,
I understand that. I'm just saying on the rate card, it should either be there or not there. And if it's not there, we should just say it exactly
Does
like
not
it used to
include.
be, exactly like it used to be. I'm sorry, could you just, I hate to say it, Judy, if you're gonna have,
Mary Ann suggested that it be taken off, as my understanding, on the rate card.
then I look forward to discussing that. Okay. Okay, I would love to know why.
I do believe that she was concerned that it wasn't proper to include the sales tax in the rates. So we went down $1 and took the extra dollar off of the rates that we were charging to pay for sales tax from the customer. Now we are in charge of paying our own sales tax on our whatever money we make. The extra dollar that they put on that replaced that dollar was for the $2 per person instead of the $1 per person. It seems a little confusing, but I do it all day long, so I don't think about it.
Okay.
But I see where you need to be explained to, and maybe write out something for you. So that's what.
Well, but Judy, so the 2021 rate card says $10, rate does not include sales tax. The
Right.
2022 rate, which you said just went down $1, actually went up $1 on the rate card, and it doesn't say rates do not include sales tax.
Person. That was the last year that we took off the sales tax. The sales tax was it was a $10 fare with $1 tax. So the one person fare was $11. It's not 20.
Okay. But mine was consistent. My question was purely consistency, so.
Either or. It should be on there.
Next week?
Next meeting, can you put together that sort of history of the rates and all that, Brad? Thank you so much. Or Pat.
Thank you, Judy.
I think
Yeah,
Pat
really.
would do, I think Pat would do a good job with that. Of
Nope.
course.
Oh, yeah.
No. Yeah. Yeah, we'll figure it out, guys. Let's see, item number 10, request of Gary Pollard to waive the advertising fee associated with his application to amend the zoning ordinance regarding game rooms. Hi, Gary.
Hello. Is Molly coming back for this?
Oh, yeah, I should get her. Oh, thank you, Laurel. She asked if she could leave. I told her she couldn't.
I don't have to say things twice.
Right.
Should I start by
Yes, please,
making
Gary.
a
Thank
statement?
you.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm going to give you this, I'll start with a little background on pinball games, which I didn't know myself until I did. some
We're going to
research.
have that on a future agenda. This is just on the.
Well, I realized that, but this kind of it all ties together. And whatever I say tonight about it will save time next week or 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
I won't have to repeat it.
Uh,
But it
it's-
has.
No,
it's-
No.
This is on the waiver for your fee.
Right. But I'm, okay, I can't make a statement about why I want it to, I think it should be waived.
Yes.
Okay, so before 1947, pinball games didn't have.
Why do you
footballs
want your fee waived? Why do you want your fee waived?
Because I'm not the sole beneficiary of this.
Okay.
It's not as clear cut case as when Chris Waffle asked for relief for his advertising fee for something to do with affordable housing,
Yes.
but it had some similarities. And I think it's the ordinance was passed at a time when there were 4 game rooms on the island.
Mm-hmm.
My theory is that it was passed because people, the town council and other people on the island thought if you had more than 4 game rooms, like 5, the island fabric would be torn apart. There'd be more crime, drug use, and that's why they put the prohibition in. There were 4 game rooms open for 30 years when they passed the prohibition, and they stayed open and never had a problem. The 10 years I ran my game room, I never had a problem. Occasionally drunk adults late at night were a problem, and never had a problem with young people.
So can I just ask a procedural question on that? So the person who's asking for an exception the rule is they
Pays
pay
for
for
the
the
advertising,
advertising.
yeah.
Basically saying this is coming up for a vote or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And partly the theory is their benefit.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's fair that I bear the expense. I already spent $800 just on a lawyer to make write the amendment, the ordinance change, consulting on the phone. And I didn't realize for advertising fee for the planning hearing was $100. This one's $418.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there's no other place in the country with a ban on game rooms. In Oakland, California, in 2014, they rescinded a 82-year-old ban on pinball in that city, although it was symbolic because they were all over the city already. It was never enforced. In Marshfield, Mass, in 2012, they rescinded a 32-year-old ban on pinball and game rooms. And we're the only place, as far as I know, with a ban on them.
Thank you, Gary. Just sort of for your background, Neil, I know Molly, you've seen this before. I can remember voting a couple of times to waive on a couple of affordable housing proposals that actually, as Gary says, came from Chris Warfel. Those were you know, I don't think it's terribly common, but you know, I mean, My own opinion about this is that this does not rise to the level of affordable housing in terms of waiving a fee. That's my own.
I'm
opinion.
not saying it does. I'm
Yeah.
saying it has some similarities with it.
Yeah,
I'm not the sole beneficiary. It just, and it's a ridiculous ordinance that was in place when there were already 4 game rooms open that were grandfathered in once the prohibition was passed.
Well, I
So-
don't think anyone's debating the ordinance, right? Yet,
Well,
that's
Right.
not what
hold
we're
on.
doing. We're
But
simply.
I know, but
so
this is
there's
all
a-
about changing the ordinance. Why am I paying for that?
There's a point here I think we're missing. If the if the existing ones are grandfathered in, they're grandfathered in at the level they're at. They can't expand, they're pre-existing non-conforming, they're very restricted. So they in fact could also benefit. And it would seem the recourse would be to get the other people on board with you, but to pay for this. Not to
I'm
ask,
sorry, would
not
you
to ask the
repeat that?
town
I-
to,
Would you repeat that? I'm sorry. I didn't follow.
that if you have 4 that are already pre-existing non-conforming, they're limited to whatever they have now.
Okay, so
So they could,
Okay.
theoretically, they could benefit from this ordinance as well. So it's not just you. So why didn't you get all of them together?
because
look for
over
this.
the last 10 years, the 4 game rooms I've been mentioning that Johnny Del Ricky serviced consecutively for 40 years here. In the last 10 years, all voluntarily gave their game room license up because game rooms are just not making money because people can play games on their phone, on PlayStation at home. And, so the revenue dropped. I did the same thing. I closed my game room and made a retail shop. I got as much for rent as I made in the game room. But I'm in a unique position now that movie theaters are almost a dying industry. I'm in a unique position. I have a lot of excess space and I want to use it inside the theater. And this is, I think, an appropriate use. And as I said, this is going to benefit the youth of the island. And it's not a huge moneymaker. If this was a liquor license or a moped license, I wouldn't be up here asking for relief. This is not the last, there are no more game rooms. Champlin's was the last one to close theirs when they sold it. They turned it into a boutique, which is actually what my game room became in the Taffy Tent building. As I said, this is going to go in the theater itself. I'm taking a lot of seats out because we're not using it for movies, and this is, I think, a good way to use the space. And as I said, it's for not just my
Okay.
benefit. Anyone who wants to open a game room can still do so, although I think it's unlikely.
So
that will happen.
one more question. So Chris Warfel is that the only exception in the last few years? Or
It's-
is there
it's the
something
one
to
that I-
compare
it's
to?
It's the one that I can recall.
It's the public good. It's
Yeah.
been,
Yeah, there's a
housing, I
sort of
think.
a,
But is it often or any time in the past where someone, a private citizen, has come before you to change an ordinance? Has that ever happened?
Yes.
yeah,
For instance, like,
I mean, we've just talked about it, the housing stuff.
well, no, I mean, a private citizen okay, that was an ordinance change?
Mhm.
Okay. And besides that, I guess.
I
So
don't,
it's
I don't
pretty
remember
rare.
any, but
Right.
does,
Well, Many
does,
go through the planning board, whether it's set back. I mean,
Yeah.
no, there's
Yeah,
a
I
number
mean,
of cases. I guess the question to me, is there is personal gain in this ordinance, in changing this ordinance? And I mean, I don't know how to. That seems to draw the line to me. Does that make sense? So,
I understand your point, but
Yeah.
I feel in this situation, like I said, if this was a liquor license, a moped license.
well, just because you're
I
not
would
making
never
as
be
much money
coming-
as a
I would
bar.
Never be asking for relief, but this is not a huge money-making thing. I'm trying to keep the theater as the interior the way it is. This is one way, I hope, to bring some more revenue in. And again, I just feel, because it's not a liquor license, it's not a moped, it's not like I'm printing money with liquor and mopeds like other people are.
is there any
Uh,
other?
Yeah, I mean, my only thing, at the end of the day, I could care less on the exception, but then we create the precedent
Yeah.
that the next person comes and asks for the same thing with similar, and there's something on the books that how you make the decision on this, so.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. Does anybody want to
But,
make?
so there's only one in memory where Chris Wolf, or one instance this has ever even happened before. And you're afraid it's going to happen more if we approve this.
There's no such fear. It's just, I think there's a precedent and public good. I'm not,
Okay, well, I see your point, but
Yeah.
I think I have a valid point as well.
anybody? Does anybody want to make a motion to waive? Because okay. Sorry, Gary. I don't think there's support for this.
Okay, thank you.
All right then. We have, I would like to have Mary Ann here for the state police budget update because I think she's engaged on that. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with Rick McAuliffe and Tina Spears on the tax structure items. So I'd like to postpone those until our next meeting if people are okay with that. So I can give you an update and we can decide what we need. 14, discuss Rhode Island Airport RIAC restaurant RFP. There is an RFP out. I believe it's an RFP, if not an RFP out or a bid document out from RIAC for the restaurant space that used to house Bethany's. There are, quite frankly, from what I've seen, some real capital improvement issues there. Some things that have been let go over the years that in order to house a going concern, you would have to dump a pretty significant amount of money to get up and running.
So can I just say,
Yes.
not to interrupt you?
Yeah.
Tina and I went on a tour of the space. There's nothing in the space. There's not even flooring
Right.
in the space. So it's not just, it's more than
Right,
considerable.
right.
It's just everything.
Yes, it's significant. Originally, I was approached with the idea of doing a resolution to RIAC about the space and about the bid process. After thinking about it and talking to Tina Spears, who met with RIAC last week about the space, I was hoping that you would, and obviously I'll share whatever draft I do, but I was hoping to send a letter to RIAC, CC'd to Tina Spears and Alana DeMario, talking about how important that space is to our community and having an ongoing business there. And frankly, asking RIAC to understand that its value is such that we would hope that they would be working constructively with bidders, et cetera. And as I think, if I didn't say this, CCing it to Tina and Alana, I think they both would like that because it will help them to engage with RIAC in these conversations. And if you're okay with it, obviously I'll share whatever I come up with you. But I think I mean, I happen to feel it is an important thing for the community to have additional spaces. And right now, I don't know that the capital expenditures that you have to make to upgrade that facility would enable you to even run a business there. That's how bad it is.
Isn't it also an important thing to the airport? I mean, just in terms of people who fly in for a lunch, which we all know is a reality.
Yeah.
I'm baffled by their short-sightedness, and they're just not going to, as they talk about hill to die on, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Good luck out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I really push Gateway to Block Island and all of that.
Yes. Jess Willie.
Jessica Willie, Director of the Tourism Council. My office is at the airport. I just don't know if you're aware that they were there today at a pre-bid meeting.
Yes.
We're all out here and so you've seen the concessions they've made already? And
Yes.
You still don't think that's enough, is what you're saying?
Yeah, basically they have a $10,000 allowance and,
Yeah.
you know, I
I just wasn't sure if you'd seen that new.
I want to be careful not to rip their faces off. I mean, what we're really asking is, can you work with us? Because this space is important.
Right, they need
You
to be
know?
reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yep.
Exactly, Jess. Yeah. Yeah, great. I will work on that tomorrow. Discuss, item 15, discuss,
Henry.
whoop, sorry, Henry. Yes. Don't push your way through an open door, DuPont.
I apologize.
Would you please,
Anyway, I've been following the RIAC board meetings. And then also as a tenant, I get to talk to them once a quarter about airport issues. And there's been a market shift in the last couple of years with regard to RIAC's attitude towards the general aviation airports. And normally when they introduced the subject, which is at the end of their normal board meetings, instead of talking about airport operations, the number of enplanements, what the general aviation airports need, they launch right into this real estate thing. And they talk about the different parcels they have at the general aviation airports and who's bidding on what and what's going on. And there's very little talk about fostering general aviation at those airports, which is in their actual charge, what they're meant to be doing. Instead of they've turned into a funny kind of real estate agency. And at that meeting that we had, the first thing, and Block Island, remember, they had 5 lots and we beat them back to it. Now they just have 1 in the corner of the field because they wanted to build an industrial park right across the road from the airport. I mean, that's what it's for non-aviation use. So sadly, our airport diner, which is more than the only airport diner in the state, it's a public utility. It's needed for the island for so many different reasons. I can't meet with a client anymore, except with takeout coffee at the Solovican Beach if I want to have a meeting with somebody. I mean, it's ridiculous. So the issue that's, I mean,
And we're going to
you
change
discussed-
parking there, so you won't be able to park there anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. That's important. Now, the big change is they don't recognize our airport diner as an important resource to the island. Instead, it's a piece of real estate and how can they squeeze the most out of it, and why any landlord would not want to keep their property up and make it rentable. If you're a commercial landlord, the first thing you do is get in there, paint the place, make it attractive, make it so that when you show prospective tenants thing, they would want to rent it. And they have done exactly the opposite. They think a tenant's going to come in there and make code and health department improvements that they're unwilling to make. So we just need to help them turn this around without, using the hammer, because they just hammer right back. And he is our state representatives who have the oversight over them and can actually make things happen. People inside RIAC tell me that whenever a city or town writes them and wants something, they have one of those laugh fests afterwards because they say, yeah, how are they going to make us do that? It's a joke kind of thing. But we need to engage your state representatives, point out how important a resource this is to the island, and get them to fix it up so that people would like to bid on it and on reasonable commercial terms. And
That
once
is our intention. as we
Once that
discussed.
happens,
Yep.
things will start happening.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry. Appreciate your work on this. Item 15, discuss and act on. Did somebody else? Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. I didn't see you.
Sorry, I don't know if this is the right time. I was hoping just to ask some questions, or should I wait?
Please ask away.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to follow up in terms of next steps, and I realize that we should have done different resolutions for Victory Day. But in terms of next steps, if we wanted to proceed, how would we do that?
Why don't you call me?
Okay,
Okay.
okay. So,
And we'll-
and for the crosswalks as well.
Yep.
Okay, just wanted, perfect. Thank you.
Don't leave. I'll give you, if you don't, Austin has my number, and if you don't, 15A, appointment of Harbors Committee member, term expiring 2024. Before I get to the names, this is one of those committees that is vitally important to the town, vitally important to the town, and struggles with quorum issues. So I just want to make note for the council that I'm going to probably put on a future agenda, adding an alternate to Harbors so that the quorum issues don't exist at least as frequently as they have. We have 3 candidates: John Grant, Matt King, and Andrew Dowdell, all of whom have, I believe, reached out to Millie and Laurel et al. There's no especially good way to do this. I don't, at least I haven't found it when you have multiple candidates for one spot. Does anybody have strong feelings about any of these candidates?
I just don't know. Is everybody here year round? I know John is. I don't know
Yeah.
about the other two.
I think Andrew is. I don't know about Matt. If no one else has anything, I would say that John Grant is one of the only commercial fishermen remaining in Old Harbor. He's, I think, what I've seen, a good steward of his space, is actively engaged in matters down in Old Harbor. He's here year round. He's quite interested. I don't know Matt as well. And I don't personally know Andrew Dowdell, but I've,
So I did get a message from John Grant today. And let's see, just says that he understands there were 2 other names, other people who put their names in. And one does not live here year round, the other does. And he would be very happy if we chose Andy to be on the board. So in other words, he isn't removing his name. I think he would like to be an alternate. I think he's frustrated by the quorum issues. And I think that's what inspired him to put his name in. So
so you're saying
So
you heard from John that he doesn't want to be a candidate?
exactly.
Because that's
So-
not what I heard from, but
Oh, it's,
I felt
well,
like.
maybe I'm reading it wrong. Let me just
but,
go back and.
Kim, you had something?
Just a clarification, to help you out, Andrew is a very low-key, hardworking guy who's about to be the father of my great grand something.
Oh,
Excellent.
that's
So,
the
in
one.
case you're
Okay.
wondering who he is.
Now it connects. Gotcha. Well, I'm perfectly happy with the motion to recommend, to endorse Andrew with the assumption that on on an upcoming agenda, we'll talk about adding an alternate, because I do think
I really like to
quorum
see John.
problems. You'd like to see John?
Just because he's been working down there for so long. But if you wanted to, that way.
I-
I'm fine with that.
I'm going based on what Molly just said,
I-
because my, whatever. Go ahead. No, go.
At the next meeting, at the next meeting, if we can do the alternate, because I think that that is a solution without just raising the number and therefore making it harder to have a quorum. And we can sort of slot John into that mentally, I think, and from what I heard from Kate or others,
I would make a motion to appoint Andrew Dowdell to the Harbors Committee.
second,
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Tourism Council.
and then on the next agenda, we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Does that work, Mo?
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry.
You can tell John Grant, he can run to the west side, but he can't hide.
We have a request to be appointed from Jennifer Huggins. She owns Diamond Blue, for those who don't know. I would make a motion to appoint Jennifer Huggins to the Tourism Council.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We have vacancies
Congratulations.
on Deer Task Force, Commission on Motor Vehicles for Hire, the Police Advisory Commission, and the Board of Canvassers. With that, I'd accept the motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry, on police advisory, we had a discussion that we wanted it when the chief got here,
Yes.
settled in,
Yes.
and maybe in April or May. Can we
Great.
just-
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
That
on
was it,
my-
basically to have a
definitely on my
discussion
list.
around
Yes,
the commission and how to make sure
yes.
it's functioning to its fullest
Definitely.
ability.
Someone like to make a motion to adjourn? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.